Alright guys, so today we're going to talk about rational functions. So after the fundamental theorem of algebra, we really get into what rational functions are and asymptotes, and normally we would graph them, but this year I just really want to focus on the questions you're going to see in the Hawks. So with that being said, the big thing on the Hawks that they really care about is the rational function asymptotes. So there's some rules that go with this. So a vertical asymptote, to find the vertical asymptote, you set the denominator to 0 and you solve for x. So before you can do all that though, you need to follow these 3 steps. So you're going to factor the top and the bottom. You set each factor in the denominator to 0 and you solve for x. If the factor does not appear in the numerator, then it is a vertical asymptote. If it is in the numerator, then it's called a hole. That's what we call it. So that's vertical asymptotes, and we'll do some examples. Horizontal asymptotes. If the degree on top is less than the degree on bottom, that's what this first one is saying. So if you look at it, that's the degree, the exponent. Then automatically, your horizontal asymptote is y equals 0, and that's going to be your answer. You just write y equals 0. If the degrees are equal, then you have to do the coefficient of a, or the first term, divided by the coefficient of b, aka the bottom term on first. And then if the degree on top is bigger than the degree on bottom, and there is no horizontal asymptote, there could be an oblique asymptote, and we really only focused on that whenever there's exactly one more than the bottom one. And we'll do examples of everything, okay? So, you're going to see functions like this. These are called rational functions because they're pretty much fraction problems, if that's how you want to think about them. So the first step is going to be the vertical asymptote. So what we do is we'd factor the top and the bottom. Well, in this first one, they're already factored. So then what I do is I set the bottom equal to 0, and I would solve it. So that would be my vertical asymptote, and you have to type in x equals 2. Horizontal asymptote, I just look at the degrees. Well, this is an exponent of 1, this is an exponent of 1. So if they're the exact same, I take the coefficients of the leading term, and I do division. So I'm going to say y equals, it's negative 1 divided by 1. So this is a 1 right here, and this is a 1 right here. So that would be y equals negative 1 would be your horizontal asymptote. Now C, I'm only going to do for these first couple ones. They might ask you to do it for all of them. It just kind of depends. It says pick 4 points to graph. Guys, you're just going to have to plug in numbers and solve. Now, you know you can't use 2. So use anything besides 2 for your x. So like literally just plug in 1 or 0. So if I plug in 1, that'd be negative 1 plus 4 over 1 minus 2. That would be 3 over negative 1, which would be negative 3. So a coordinate I could use would be 1, negative 3. So that's one of them. And you just got to repeat the process. So like I'm going to plug in 0. That'd be 0 plus 4 over 0 minus 2, which would be 4 over negative 2, which would be negative 2. So that would be 0 comma negative 2. Okay, and you would do that 4 times to get 4 coordinates. So you're just going to plug in a number that is not a vertical asymptote. Okay? So then we go on to 2. We repeat the process. So we'd factor. We don't have to factor anything with this one. So when we look at our vertical asymptotes, well, you set the bottom equal to 0. So I would add 6. So that's my vertical asymptote. Your horizontal asymptote is based off the degrees. Well, notice the degree on top is 0. The degree on bottom is 1. If you remember our rules, if the degree on bottom is bigger, it's automatically y equals 0. You don't have to do any math. It's automatically y equals 0. And again, pick 4 points. You would plug in something that is not 6, and you would solve. So I could plug in like 1. That'd be 6 over 1 minus 6, which would be 6 over negative 5. So literally, I would type it in just like that, negative 6/5, and that would be what coordinate. And you just go to the next one. I could plug in 2. Well, that's 6 over 2 minus 6. It would be 6 over negative 4. So you'd simplify it, it'd be 2, negative 3 over 2. Right? And you could just plug in numbers that aren't your vertical asymptotes. And I always try to stay around 0 and stuff like that. It's just easier. So again, if you plugged in 0, and we're plugging it in for the x, and you can apply your points. Okay? So that'll probably be the last time I pick 4 points to graph. We're just going to focus on vertical asymptotes and horizontal asymptotes. So we keep moving. 3, Again, step 1 is that vertical asymptote. Well, I'd factor the top and bottom. Well, they're already factored, so then I'd set the bottom equal to 0 and I solve. So we get x equals -5. Horizontal asymptote, if you look at the degrees, they're the same. So that means I got to do the coefficients divided by one another. So that'd be 2 over 1, which would be 2. Now here's where we kind of get into a tough one. So if you look at the top on this one, your vertical asymptote you need to factor, right? Well, the bottom is already factored into 2x plus 2. The top, I always like to just plug in 2x plus 2 and see if I can multiply that, or aka FOIL it, to get back to what I started on the bottom. So I just need an x here, because that would give me that 2x squared. And then I'm going to need a -2 here to get that -4. So then I would FOIL to see if I get the same thing that I started with. So that would be 2x squared minus 4x plus 2x minus 4. And if I combine those, you'll notice it's what you started with. So that 2x plus 2 is going to cancel. So because there's nothing on the bottom, there is no vertical asymptote. We would call that a hole. Okay? And then the horizontal asymptote on this one, because the degree on top is 1 bigger than the degree on bottom, this is called a slant asymptote or an oblique one. And you have to do long division. So I would do 2x plus 2, and this is why we did polynomial division. 2x squared minus 2x minus 4. So what I got to multiply 2x squared by to get to 2x? Well, that would just be x. So I would take 2x squared plus 2x, and I go through and I change my signs. It becomes a minus. So it'd be -4x minus 4. So this means to be a -2. So -4x minus 4. I would turn those into pluses. I have no remainder. So my horizontal asymptote would be y equals whatever you got for your long division, which would be x minus 2. It's always going to be y equals. Okay. Number 5. Vertical asymptote you would factor. But this one, it's already kind of factored with the x cubed minus 8. Don't need to worry about it too much, but what you do need to do is set it equal to 0 still and solve it. Now, how do you get rid of a cube? Well, you got to cube root both sides, and hopefully you know your cube roots. Well, the cube root of 8 would be 2, so my vertical asymptote is x equals 2. And then your horizontal asymptote, again, based off the degrees, they're the exact same. They're the same. I do the leading coefficient divided by the leading coefficient, which would be 1. So 1 divided by 1 gives me y equals 1. Remember, horizontal asymptote is always y equals, vertical is always x equals. Number 6, again, you would try to factor if you could. On this one, if I factor the top and bottom, the top's going to factor into, I'm going to give myself some room over here. So I do 12, AC method, would be 3 and 4, so 2x squared plus 3x plus 4x plus 6. That would be x, so 2x plus 3. This would be plus 2, 2x plus 3. So the top's going to factor into this. And the bottom, if I factor it, it'd be -6 and 3. So it multiplies to -18, but adds that -3. We'll notice none of them are the same, so then I'm going to set everything on the bottom equal to 0, and I'm going to solve it. So this one has 2 vertical asymptotes. So I can get 6 and -3. And it's okay if you have more than one. So then B, horizontal asymptote, again, you just base it off the degrees. Well, they're the same. So I would do 2 divided by 1, which would be 2. Again, it's just based off the highest exponents. Now, you do see this on here, and this is like something they're going to have you graph. What you want to do is you want to set the bottom equal to 0, so it'd be 16. X squared equals 16. Square root it. Well, it's plus or minus 4. So I have a +4 and a -4 as my vertical asymptotes. So I want to show you you're going to have to graph it, what it's going to look like. So I'm going to go to Desmos. So let's do 2 over x squared plus 16. What it was? Minus 16. Okay, so we just did the vertical asymptotes. And a vertical asymptote is a line that's not going to cross. So like -4 and 4. All right. And what I really want to show you is like you have to select the red lines on Hawks. So what you can do is just think about this. If it's positive, that means these ends are going to be above the x-axis. The middle part's going to be below. Now, if I went through and I made this negative, that means the ends are going to be below the x-axis, and the u is going to be above. And they always have the same general shape. So again, positive on top means that u is going to go down. These are going to go up on your vertical asymptotes. Negative means that these are going to go down, and your u is going to be going up in the middle. I just wanted to talk about it. If we were in person, I'd spend a little more time on it. It's kind of hard to show, but that's just what you're going to see. The other thing, too, is you got the vertical asymptotes. And what I want you to notice as well, I'll go back to the graph after we do it. The horizontal asymptote, the degree on bottom is bigger, so it's automatically y equals 0. So that's a horizontal line, so you got to graph that one too. And if you go back to Desmos and look at our graph, look at this. They never cross y equals 0, aka this flat horizontal line on the x-axis. So they don't cross my vertical asymptotes, and they don't cross my horizontal asymptote of y equals 0. And that's how asymptotes work. It's a line that you're never going to cross. Okay? Your homework's going to be, let's see, 4.5a Hawks. If you guys have any questions, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help. Otherwise, enjoy your day, get the homework done, and I will see you guys next time.